I am a male vintage hippie who has had a fair share of psychedelic experiences in his time. None, however, could equal up to the life-changing trip I experienced after ingesting the divine cactus. It was Saturday in El Paso, Texas. I was out of the house by 6 o'clock looking for my well-known friend, lysergic acid diethylamide. Now up until this point, I'd never had a problem finding acid, but this time would be different. I was very disappointed to hear that I had not succeeded in my journey for a dose. That is until I came across a Mexican-American, let's call him Juan, that I'd recently jammed with. I remember him telling me about a certain cactus he had experimented with while he was seeking enlightenment in the Chihuahuan Desert, Mexico. My curiosity arose. Of course, being the desperate bastard I was at the time, I anxiously begged him to hook me up with peyote. Now, when I say hook up, I'm not giving off the idea that I am a stoner who abuses psychoactive drugs for the feeling. I have not, nor will I ever put a drug in my body for a reason other than to expand my mind, and for a better understanding of Earth before it was infected by society. Juan informed me that I was in luck, and a few of his friends actually did have peyote in their possession. My disappointment quickly turned to ecstatic joy. "Hop in," Juan said. I quickly jumped in the vintage 1971 Volkswagen van, and we were off for a religious experience I will never forget. When we arrived, I was surprised, but rather excited, to walk into an abode-style house full of Native Americans. They told me what to expect of the peyote, and that I would experience nausea, especially being the size I am, but they told me it was nothing compared to the knowledge I would gain from the trip. Okay, enough of the novel bullshit. Time for the good stuff. They opened a bag about 3 feet high and probably 1 foot in diameter. Inside was nearly 200 ready-to-serve peyote buttons. They handed me 13, which just happens to be my lucky number. They told me to be prepared for the bitter taste I would experience. Man, were they right. I've never in my life tasted something so bitter. But hey, you can't expect something that sprouts from the ground and stuck in a bag to taste like marshmallows. I finished all 13 of them after about 30 minutes. Probably an hour after ingestion, the nausea was extreme. I went outside to vomit, and vomit I did. God damn did I vomit. The negativity of the puking didn't compare to what was about to happen. I walked around to the back of the house to see the mountains of El Paso, quite astonishing from certain angles, and being that everyone else was already tripping, I knew I wouldn't be missed greatly. So off I was, to hike the mountains of western Texas. After about 30 minutes of hiking, the time now being about 10:30 p.m, I stopped at my destination. That was whatever looked appealing to me. I laid down on my back. The stars never looked so beautiful and in perfect order. I stood up and looked around. Everything was so incredibly fascinating and beautiful. The shrubs' leaves glistened with light. It was at this time when I fell back down into an Indian-style sitting position. The intensity of the beauty grew every second. Every time I blinked, a rainbow of colours appeared. So I closed my eyes in a meditative style. And this is when my vision arose. In this vision, I was standing still in a field looking straight ahead at a buffalo. It was probably 50 yards away from me. It moved forward slowly, probably an inch every minute or so. The buffalo didn't move in position though when it came forward. It just sort of slided towards me. Now let's jump forward in time about an hour later when it is about 3 feet in front of me. The past hour I had been so amused by the buffalo coming towards me. I was anticipating what would happen when it got to me. Nearly 1,000 thoughts were running through my head at once, perfectly clear. I'm not sure exactly what they were now, but it seemed that every thought was how excited I was to see what would happen when the buffalo reached me. Now let's skip to the part where the buffalo is 6 inches away from me. The anticipation then turned to fear and terror. It was coming head on towards my stomach. It wasn't going to stop. It was probably the most terrifying feeling I have ever experienced. A few minutes later, roughly 5,000 thoughts later, it was centimetres away from my body. If this weren't a vision, my pants would have been soaked with urine. Here's the exciting part. The buffalo is literally touching my skin, though I feel nothing, nor do I fall back. It slowly just moves through my body, gliding right past me, well, through me. A few minutes later it is totally behind me, and all that I can see is the field and where it meets the horizon. Now, to end this vision, nothing could have done it better than what happens next. At the start of the horizon, a white light arises, then it suddenly grows to cover up my whole screen, meaning everything I can see or everything in front of me. And just like that, I'm out of my visionary state, back in the mountains, sitting just like I was before this happened, except it was totally bright. That vision, at which seemed to have taken place in about 2 hours, had lasted about 10. I looked around at everything I had admired the night before. I say this in the simplest form, though no words can describe how I really felt. I honestly felt one with everything around me, everything I saw. And I have felt this way towards everything since this experience. I walked back down to the Indian's house and knocked on the door to find Juan saying, "Hey man, I'm ready to go." Just like that. No, "Hey, where did you go? We were worried." Odd, but not offensive. He took me back to my house, where I sat for the rest of the day wondering what all of my vision meant. It surely couldn't have happened for no reason. It had to have had a meaning, and I was going to find out what that meaning was. 6 months later, I had travelled with friends up to Oklahoma next to Lawton, where the Wichita Mountains lie. My friend and I were walking around. Everything was well and peaceful. Next thing we knew, a buffalo had gone wild and started running around at dangerous speeds in a psychotic manner. My friend ran off in fear for his life, but I, on the other hand, was reminded of my vision on Peyote. The buffalo started running towards me. In a matter of 10 seconds, I had relived the 10-hour-long experience that had occurred, and something in my mind told me not to move. When I snapped back into reality, the buffalo was standing right in front of me, holding completely still. It had gone from carelessly running around to standing completely still in a matter of seconds. My friends were astonished, as was I. That's when I discovered what my vision meant, and up to this date, this is the best experience I have ever encountered. Definitely what I would call a spiritual experience. I highly recommend the spiritual, medicinal or religious use of peyote to anyone seeking enlightenment.